You're never bluffing in this end, right? You don't have any bluff here. Yes, son.
Raffaele Sorrentino doesn't think Douglas Souza has any bluffs. I guess he's supposed to fold then. I mean, that's what he's saying, right? That's what he's telling himself. Or maybe he's just working out this spot because it is a huge spot in the EPT.
You know, there's so many times late in a tournament where you have a good hand, just like Sorrentino does, right? He's got top, things are looking great, but then the under-the-gun razor goes bet, bet, shove, and you're not loving your spot so much anymore.
I mean, you've been playing for like 4 or 5 days, and this could just be the end of your tournament. This is a huge tournament, one of the biggest on the poker calendar. It's an enormous spot, and that's why we have to break it down.
Yep. By the way, we are, of course, at the EPT Monte Carlo Millions, and there's just 18 players left.
Main event, that is, of course.
Of course, the EPT, whatever, Monte Carlo main event. It's not the Millions. No one calls it that.
No.
But there's 18 players left. There's a huge amount to win. And by the way, one of these 2 players is going to go on to win this event. I'll tell you that.
That is a fun little fact, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's probably why Twittermaster suggested it on Twitter, which, where else would he suggest it, I guess?
I mean, I don't know. But I hope he, included a YouTube link and a timestamp because that's important.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the video, we got to take a quick moment and thank Nitrogen Sports Poker, the guys who are responsible for making this video possible for you guys and for us as well. They are an awesome Bitcoin-only poker site. That means lightning fast withdrawals and deposits, as well as a super cheap, I mean like less than $1 buy-in tournament at the end of every month that includes the poker guys with a massive, massive overlay, so you're always basically getting free money.
Right, so you have to use the link in the description of this video when you sign up for Nitrogen, or else you don't get to play in that tournament, which, by the way, I won last month. No big deal.
Finished third.
But if you want to challenge the master, come on, bring it on. Use the link in the description, sign up. By the way, we paid like what, 70 cents to buy in, and I won $350 for first. There were 22 players in the tournament.
It's incredible.
You have to get in here.
You're
it's
crazy
insane.
not to be playing it.
Yeah. Now let's see what these guys are doing on the EPT.
Where Elke is going to the flop against 2 opponents, Douglas Souza and Raffaele Sorrentino.
Seems like between the 3 of them, they've got all the interesting flops covered.
Well, that is a very interesting flop. Top pair for Sorrentino, flush draw for Souza.
Should be seeing some action.
It's been checked to Souza. He was the pre-flop aggressor.
And now he's going to semi-bluff.
He continues for 74,000.
74?
74.
Sorrentino calls. Elke folds his 7s.
Once again, forced to fold what was the best hand pre-flop.
So heads up to the turn, which is a 3. Sorrentino still ahead with top pair, top kicker.
I guess 10-9 of spades has got to keep betting here.
Another semi-bluff from Douglas Souza, 148,000.
So he's really hoping for a fold, which won't happen here, and then I guess spades is the backup plan.
Once again, Sorrentino calls.
Some smooth passive play from Sorrentino.
651,000 in the middle. Sorrentino's got less than pot behind. Souza did not get there on the river.
Calling.
So he bluff shoves. It's all in to call for Sorrentino, who has got the best hand.
This is a very serious call to have to make. But I think ultimately you have to. Souza is going to have some worse value hands, but a lot of flop draws bricked, mainly spades. So this is a prime spot for a bluff shove. But I will admit, ace-queen is right on the line.
All right, this is a crappy spot, right? I don't want to be Raffaele Sorrentino in this spot, but guess what? I have been him in this spot. I mean, not in the Monte Carlo main event, but many times late in tournaments, this occurs, and it seems standard, but it's a tough spot.
Yeah, it's easy when you can see the cards to say, well, of course you call. But if we sit back and think about it, we beat exactly 0 value,
yes.
Right? And the other big problem in terms of value combinations is pretty much everything that's beating us, meaning the next pip up hand, pocket kings, is betting for value on this river.
Right. Now, we know Souza has 10-9 of spades. That means he probably has all of the pairs in his range because he has a big stack, it's a bully moment, and there's only 7 players at the table. That means he also has the sets. That means we can give him a decent amount of value combos with the sets, probably not the turn set, but the flop sets, aces and kings, and sets of queens, which of course there's only one of because we blocked that. That's a decent amount of value, but it's not a ton. So there's a couple factors we have to look at.
Yeah, now, just to throw in some more value possible combinations, he might be able to have ace-5 suited. He might be able to have 5-6 suited. It is 7-handed. He is potentially bullying the table here.
Right, but that has another side to it. That means he could have a lot of bluffs.
Yes,
now,
that's true.
If we could include just plain random bluffs in his range at all, just like 9-10 of diamonds in his range, then it's an easy call.
Yeah.
But let's assume for a second that we can't do that. The question becomes, does he play his spades like this very often, and how deep do his spades go? Now, we know he has 9-10 of spades. If we're assuming he has those low sets, he probably has other spades as well. And it's kind of an important thing to know, would he take this line with his spades?
Right, exactly. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, well, he can have spades when we call on the turn. It's another thing to say, is he actually going to move in on the river with the same spades? Some players will, some players just won't do it, or are very unlikely to do it anyway. And so knowing your opponent's tendencies really matters here.
Well, I think Souza would, and I think he should. Now, I don't know necessarily that much about Souza, but I think as a player in Souza's position, you should move in on the river with this hand because Sorrentino is really capped. He has the best hand he ever shows up with here. We believe this is the literal top of his range.
Yes.
We think he would have raised a set along the way. We don't think he ever has kings or aces. So as Souza, knowing that, we don't expect necessarily ace-queen all the time, some weaker queens. Those are hero calls only. It's a great time to move in with all of your bluffs.
I agree. I don't even know if it's possible for Sorrentino to have a set here. He starts with about 30 blinds.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to flat any small pairs here, honestly. So if he can't have sets, really the only hand he can have for value, this is it. This is as good as it ever gets. I agree with Grant. Top of the range here, and really we're not even targeting that, although we might be able to fold that out too. As you see, it's not an easy spot for Sorrentino. If I was sitting there as Souza, I'd be thinking, this guy has like, what, king, queen, like most of the time here? What's he supposed to do when I move him in? How's he supposed to call with one pair?
How's he going to call? There's 18 players left in an EPT. This is a huge moment. How are you supposed to call Sorrentino? But Sorrentino does have the very top of his range, which is an argument for calling. Another argument for calling is calling and winning this hand gives him such a good chance to win the big money. Whereas if he folds, he's crippled. He's going to have a lot of trouble advancing much further in this tournament.
So then what it starts to come down to is we see all these different things we're trying to balance is, do I block any significant combinations that Souza can have or not? I think that's a really key question. So as we look at our own hand as Sorrentino, we see we have ace-queen. One thing we don't have, though, is the ace of spades.
Right, that is very important because if Souza has flush draws that are going to bluff, he firmly has all of the nut flush draws in his range. And the fact that we don't block that is great for us. It might come down to as simple as, even though it's the top of our range, Souza has a huge range advantage on us, but we don't block the nut flush draw, which means we can call when we don't have the ace of spades, and we should fold if we did have the ace of spades.
We should at least strongly consider folding. Some people, I think, will make the argument, and it's not unreasonable, since this is the best hand we can ever show up with here ever, if we fold this hand, we fold 100% of our range when the guy moves in on the river, then we shouldn't have made it to the river. And that's fair, right? So then the argument might be, so you just can't fold. But going past that, if we actually look situationally at this, I think it's important to have this blocker. I agree with Grant. I think ace of spades being in our hand or not really should be a strong determining factor.
Right, so we don't have the ace of spades. Let's see if Sorrentino is in line with our thinking.
You're never bluffing in this end, right? You don't have any bluff here. Yes, You sure if I fall?
Time table.
Who called time? Yeah?
Okay, so you got 1 minute to make decisions starting from now.
Once again, we see the clock called.
Like ace 5 or deuces. You show ace queen? Sometimes.
A decision for his tournament life.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good call.
Great call.
Really great call.
And he knows it.
He did it. He made the call.
It's a tough spot. It's a really tough spot.
It's a really, really tough spot. And I'm excited that he made the call because he was right. And by the
Yeah.
way, I said at the beginning of this video that one of these players would go on to win this event. In fact, Raffaele Sorrentino does win this Monte Carlo EPT, certainly on the strength of this call.
Oh yeah, this is a huge moment for him. It might be the biggest moment in his poker career thus far, and deservedly so, because it is a massive call. It's very hard to make this call in this spot, but he did it right.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Now, we've had huge pressure spots in the EPT before, and they've been really fun to watch, and they've included really good players such as Byron Kaverman and Steve O'Dwyer, which are the two players in this hand that I'm going to point you to right now. Click that.
It's a great hand, too. They're heads up for an EPT title, and we get another triple barrel spot and another super tough call or fold spot for one of the players. Now, if you thought this was interesting, if you want to know how he came to any of these thoughts or anything like that, you just have to check out our podcast, The Breakdown, presented by the Poker Guys. It's where we spend a good 45 minutes talking just about this one hand with a lot of jokes thrown in fairness. But we go super, super deep, talking about all the possible decisions, going down all the different avenues and branches on the tree. That's what we do in our podcast. So if you want more depth, that's the place to go.
You should definitely go there. You want to hear about the flop, you want to hear about the turn, you want to hear about Elke with sevens in the big blind.
Right.
I mean, we talk about all of that. And of course, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel.